Everyone, welcome to the Monday business meeting of the BOCC. We'll head down to, I know, employee labor insurance. Jessica was on a phone call, so she might be in a little bit late. She had no human resource requests. She did have an executive session later. Budget, I don't see Kathy. She would be budget and risk management, I'm sure. Marin's on her way over to Tri-City. So Kim, I guess information technology.
I got to cut the line today. Thank you, commissioners. Good morning. Kim Hort, IT Director. First thing is I want to say congratulations. We have fully deployed the Cisco phones. We feel like we can finally breathe. We're working on cleanup items such as moving analog lines over, but all the desk phones have been updated. So it was a lot of work and it was a hard deadline. So
yeah,
we're very pleased to say that's done. The next thing is tomorrow on the agenda, we do have a software renewal for our two-factor authentication Duo software. So I didn't know if you guys had any questions or concerns.
anything? Yeah.
Yeah, I always wonder where the appropriate place to ask questions is. On the Duo, that 56,000 or so, is that an annual fee?
It's close to 53 and yes.
Oh, it's an annual fee?
Mhm.
What are we paying for there exactly?
We're paying for the cloud platform, the application, the keys, the licensing. This is not just for employee user accounts, it's also for service accounts. So we have about 698 users, but that could also be like the assessor's office has frontline workstations. So that also counts for that profile login as well.
And that is something required by the risk pool?
It is county policy. We adopted a two-factor authentication policy.
No, just answer the question.
It is becoming an insurance requirement,
No,
yes.
is it a requirement from the risk pool at the moment?
Not a formal requirement. Requirements are issued for like the elections department. They're required to have two-factor. Health and Human Services and the Sheriff's Office are also required to have two-factor.
What other two-factor authentications did you consider?
What do you mean? Like logging into your profile, your account online? What do you mean?
Any of those things or other two-factor authentications other than just this particular one, right?
This platform covers all of those platforms, two-factor authentication.
My question is trying to figure out, did we have to do that? We've already spent how much on this?
It's an annual licensing and it's based off of a user count. So this is for 750 licenses.
Right, but we had it last year, correct?
Correct. This is an annual renewal for software.
Right, so far, how much have we paid for the dual factor authentication that we're using?
Would be around $50,000 a year.
So 53 plus another 50, like we spent 100? Or is there a year that I've missed?
Can you I guess I'm not following what you're asking.
I'm trying to figure out how much we have spent on two-factor authentication.
Okay. So it was first deployed in 2019 for elections, health department, and the sheriff's office. And then by, I believe, 2021, that's when we started rolling it out countywide.
Right. Whenever we spend this kind of money, I try and figure out what it was that we bought with that. So for election, so how much did it cost us in 2019?
I don't have that number in front of me.
Okay, but it was a lot less than 50,000, right? Because it's on a per user basis.
Yes.
Okay. The problems we've had in the past are not from, this is for you to say, no, Aaron's out to lunch here. The problems we've had in the past, of which I know, is that someone clicked on an errant email or responded to a phone call and changed data that they shouldn't have changed. This doesn't do anything for that. So my real fundamental question is, are we buying real protection? We're more comfortable, but who's going to argue against this? I mean, after all, it's for security. And I'm just saying, I'm not sure I buy that.
So just to kind of add, we've had issues where there's been brute force attempts. So users such as our Sonic Wall using a personal device, remoting in, using that platform, it requires two-factor. And what was happening, we've actually seen it in reports. I can't recall the exact date, but maybe within the last 2 months, there was a brute force, which is where AI is trying to run scripts of passwords and user profiles trying to get in. And even if they had the password, they would have to have that authentication to then get on our network. So it has protected us. Just even recently with brute force attack and password.
Okay. I would. How would I know that it was that we're actually doing? I'm concerned that we're overpaying for protection. I'm concerned that we didn't have really a real requirement to do this. I'm struggling at the moment with the example you just mentioned with AI coming in. So I don't want to say too much because I am ignorant there. But if you'd be happy enough to educate me on that, I'd be happy to hear that. And I see Aaron has his hand up. So Mr. Chairman, did you want to do that right now?
Sure, if you're good with that. Aaron, go ahead.
Good morning, commissioners. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
So just to add to what Kim was talking about, so the two-factor platform not only protects logging into the Windows machine, it also protects 365 logins and everything connected to 365. So it also prevents external attacks as well. So if somebody did happen to open an email and grab their login information, it does prevent people from being able to just use your account regardless. So it does extend into the 365 platform as well as anything that's also connected to it. So it gives us account protection as well as protection to the computer itself.
Yeah, is that protection available only with this element?
There are other options, but this allows us to extend beyond just 365. So there are other options out there, but Duo allows us to not only protect the computer itself and manage it at a cloud level, but then also extend it into other platforms. For example, it extends over to the MTTs that use the body cam network. They're connected into our Azure platform. And therefore that, because it hooks into our Azure platform, they automatically get two-factor. So it does allow us to adopt two-factor to other agencies, to other platforms without having to buy additional modules, different hook-ins, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so, but that looks like the numbers then. So how many people need the body cam?
Everyone in the sheriff's office, so
Right, so we're
about
talking-
50.
Yeah,
people.
that's fewer than 10% of the licenses that we've got. And if we're paying by the licenses, I have to ask, we all have accounts on the cloud elsewhere, and anytime I log into any of those places, they'll say, fine, let me give you a call back. And they call back and they give you a number and you have to cough the number up. With the Duo factor here, I don't know if you can see me, but I'm going to pull it out. And now I'm going to be able to continue to operate without the duo factor in my computer. And if I do things correctly, I won't have to plug in again for quite some time, as long as I don't log out. So there are holes, and some key transactions. Maybe you have key transactions that require the duo Bob, I guess. Anyhow, let's go ahead and maybe you can, maybe Kim can tell me, show me the number of incidences that have happened in the past 12 months that actually required the duo.
Are you asking for like the number of users that have activated their duo, or are you asking about like potential incidences, like the one I described with the sonic wall brute force?
I'm asking for the actual instances where the duo saved the bacon.
We would have to do some additional like report gathering. Like I said, I know that the brute force just recently happened. So we can get that information to you.
What does the brute force do? Just try every password?
Yeah, once they capture, a hacker captures like the user's profile name, like your ID. What it will do is it will run through a gamut of passwords. So it will run it.
Yeah, that's a puzzling thing, because I don't know Rick Dahl's username, except that we have a pattern where it's dollr@collegewa.gov. So that's not a challenge. The challenge is trying to figure out his password. And I'll bet you if I try to log into his account, about the 10th time, something's going to say, you know, you've tried too many times. This is not the right thing. And they'll shut the account down for some amount of time. So I don't understand your particular example.
So the example that you're giving, so let's say you did get Rick's password. In that event, the two-factor would then challenge you because you don't have the key, or for some employees that have also their phone registered, it prevents you from going any farther. It's the whole point of two-factor, is that it
Oh, I understand the
prevents
point.
the
And
second.
yeah, no, I
attack.
understand the point, and that would stop that. Now, if Rick Dahl's password got compromised, that would stop it. So would other dual factor authentications. The response I'm hoping to hear is this turns out to be the most economical and safest way for us to do it, and we save three transgressions a year at the cost of $50,000. And then you say, is it worth it to the board that we did that? And the answer might be yes. But absent that, I don't know. Okay. Another question is going to go to the telephone system. So on the phone system, I have not heard anything but people unhappy with the new phone system. Have you heard anything like that?
We've had a few users that have mentioned that they don't like it, or that it's challenging, or things aren't working as expected. And we take those and we address the issue, whether it's through training or if there's configuration follow-up. So we've been trying to stay in tune with our departments.
There's always a problem when you change a tool.
Sure.
And so I'm discounting that. In fact, I'm still struggling with trying to figure out an easy way of entering people into the dictionary, if you
The personal
address
directory.
book, right? And but there are it's 2023 that we bought this thing, or at least 2022, and it seems pretty green. Like I got a call from someone in the building, and I ought to be able to push a button and say, enter that into my
To
address
like
book.
save it into your
Yeah.
address book.
I don't know how to do that. I don't think I can do that because I've pressed every button around. And similarly, I should be able to connect with my phone. It's a voice over IP, so I know I've got IP to my phone. I should be able to create a address list to their specifications in an Excel spreadsheet and say, absorb this and go do it.
So we,
And so that kind of greenery is something I would expect out of, I would not expect that out of something that's 600 plus thousands of dollars. And remember, at the time, there were many suspicions as to whether that was a good expenditure or not. But so let me leave it at that. There's stuff that I think should be worked on the phone system and should have been included in there.
I will add that to the list to see if we can do like a import of phone contacts. Any other feedback?
I don't know specifically other than if you dial an extension, you're like,
That issue's been resolved.
has it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
You're talking about like that delay, empty.
Yeah, I haven't been here for 4 days, so I haven't tried it since. So
Yeah,
if it's
the re-
been within the past 4 days, then
Yes. I
okay.
believe on Thursday morning, at 6 a.m., we did a system reboot. It was a configuration because we were straddling between the Avaya platform and the Cisco platform. So it was a matter of trying to route to the different gateways. And since we're moved over, we were able to
Yeah.
get rid of that.
Anything else? Okay, Kim, thank you. Jessica, you didn't have anything till the end, right? Okay, budget.
Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. Today for budget, I really don't have any updates. I'm just continuing to work on the 24-25 budget. And we're continuing to do that. Last week I sent y'all a revised summary of revenues and expenses, like a trend history of what actuals have been and compared to what we're budgeting for 23 and 24. So were there any questions about what I sent you? Okay. So that's all I have for budget. I'm here to support Jeremy Austin, who's going to present risk management analytics. He's not present. He'll be on Zoom.
Is he in his office?
No, he's not in his office. He had some vehicle issues and someone hit him over the weekend. And hit him, and then they did not stay while he was.
Okay,
So
I see. He came on there, okay?
This
So
is
he's gonna-
Jeremy.
Go ahead.
Good morning. My system just came online. I apologize. Do the commissioners have the handout for the presentation?
yes, they have the handout. And we don't see you, Jeremy.
And I'm trying to resolve that.
There he is.
Good morning.
Morning.
I've met most of you, but I'm here today to present our enterprise risk management and strategic planning ideas moving forward. I began collecting data as soon as October, but I found that we don't keep most of our own statistics that I would work from for risk management. We've relied on third-party vendors to keep it. And I've struggled with the data integrity from the third-party vendors. And so some of the slides that I'll present to you are proposed and hold only place value. So I don't have some of the numbers that I would normally like to present to you. When I come to have these meetings, I would like to give you a slice of a dashboard to give you an at a glance view of the numbers that I think are important. And if you agree or disagree, we can add or detract from those values. I think that one of the most important parts of my job is to mitigate or eliminate and detect risk. And in a municipality, I've come from industry, and usually I'm competing against other people. I believe that as a municipality, we're competing against waste in redundant hours, dissimilar equipment, lack of process knowledge by our employees, because we'll be wasting the people's money. And I'm going to strive really hard to prevent that from happening. And the way I believe that I will do that is to define what our risks are. I'll try to measure them, analyze them, institute some processes to fix or address the analysis, and then control what it is that we've discovered. That process is not something that I invented at all. It comes from lean management. In slide 3, there's a handout that describes that. I didn't want to go too in depth into that, but it gives you an idea of how it is that I would use these tools to manage moving forward and understanding the data that we have. And again, our data, we haven't.
Excuse me?
Go ahead.
Hold on, Jeremy. Can we put the slide up for the other people to see? Okay, so we'll take care of it from this side.
Okay.
And I think
you
when
like
you
me to
said
wait?
slide 3, that is the 3rd page.
Yes,
What you're
sir.
Looking at, okay.
Like waiting for your microwave now, right?
Well, a little bit, right? It's, yeah. Well, I will speak to it as it's coming up, is that this is a proven and tested method of improving processes. And it doesn't matter if we're creating something or just trying to manage bettering any sort of process improvement. And I don't think that.
Jeremy, a question. You had mentioned earlier that you had suspicions of the data supplied by third parties, right?
Let me backtrack a tiny bit on that. So I'm not suspect of the value of it or the accuracy of it. What I am suspect of, and will say that it's not clean data. So for instance, when we're talking about injuries from our third-party administrator, they will name the same injury different types. They'll use a different word. And so when I'm looking at a table of many years of injuries, it's very difficult to compile statistics using different names. So it took me more than 3 man days from the data they had to make those values equal each other, to be the same, to be equivalent, so I could start running trends. I'm in the process of doing that now. I cleaned up the injury data so that they all represent. So a sprain is a sprain, not a sprain or a bruise. They will all have integral and like terminology now, and that took me quite a bit of time.
You're speaking of a previous existence on your part, right? Not what you've been doing here.
No, here.
You've spent 3 man years, or did I
Days,
misunderstand?
3 man days.
Oh, man days.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you're fast.
Right. Yeah. No. I'm too old to spend 3 years on anything, I think, but yeah.
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 Okay, and I'll just chime in. I get to see a lot of data, and I do tend to be suspicious of data in general. So I really do appreciate you narrowing down and putting them in the right category and the proper attributes.
Thank you. And, you know, there's another part to data is that it must have an inferential link to what it is that we're really trying to measure, right? So, I mean, for instance, as a parent, like if my metric were to get smiles out of my kids, I could give them ice cream for dinner and I'd sure get a lot of smiles that day. But what value does that have to the rest of our process? So it's going to take I have some industry experience with both safety and risk management. So I have a pretty good idea of what trends to look for. And so I'm trying to put those into terminology that I've used in the past that are also very clear to anyone who could at a glance look at it and make it very clear. There's not, this isn't technical mumbo jumbo. It should be really plain and straightforward and easy for anyone to pick up and understand. And so to make a process simple actually is a lot of work. And I'm in the middle of, we haven't kept those records historically that I've found. And the records that we do have are a little difficult to track. They are in multiple pathways. There's duplicate data and misnamed data. And so I felt that the very easiest way to start was to get that information from our vendors, like our third-party administrator for injuries. And they provided me with quite a bit of data, not enough. Apparently that's a novel request to them. And to their credit, that's not their job. They're keeping track of it on their end to manage how they spend the money on the claims. And so they've done a decent job of keeping track of the data. So now it's our job to keep track of it and understand it and then measure it against them. So I'm pretty happy with how quickly they did give me information, and he's really quick to work with me to try to get it into numbers that we can understand and use. For instance, we're kind of jumping ahead a tiny bit. And so if we would like to talk more about the domain process, we certainly can. That's slide 3. That's what's up there now. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. It's relatively simple. I mean, if we have a process, we have to define it. We have to put parameters on it. And the best way to make that communicatable to anyone sitting around is to make it a number to define it. It's an intrinsic value instead of something subjective. Now, granted, there are some subjective things that we can put numbers to and be close, have an inferential link to, but number of injuries is pretty simple. Number of days lost due to injury is pretty simple. Number of days restricted to the work that a person can do is pretty simple. We just have to get the data in a form that uses all the same language, and then we can start trending that. So I would start trending it by departments, by time of year. We can drill down as far as we want to go, even to supervisors or individuals, or time of year has historically had a pretty big effect too, right after the holidays. So what I'm working towards is making a dashboard for you to look at. So we can spot immediately. We'll have a trend value. We'll have a normative value that usually occurs if we see something that spikes. You can see it at the at a glance view, say, hey, why is this number so high? Then I can come back to my own data and drill down accordingly. But I would like to present you with numbers that are the 30,000 foot view. Take a look. Why is this number out of whack? If all the numbers are even, you could take a look at it and we can move on. We don't have to talk about it. And an example of that is the 4th slide. So these are actual numbers. They were provided to me by our third-party administrator. Recordable injuries per month, and then broken down by the year. And a recordable injury is defined by OSHA and WSHA as something where someone at very least has to go to a facility and receive medical treatment. It also encompasses anything beyond that injury-wise. And so these are values since 2021 by month and year. So that is one of the numbers that I would like to give to you. And it's pretty easy to graphically represent that. So for instance, slide 5 is a bar graph. And we can see that historically there are some months that are higher than other, and we need to pay attention. And then I would drill down to find, you could say, hey, Jeremy, why is February so high? Why is February tend to be high? And then I can go back, drill down in the analytics that we have, and I can provide you an answer. Am I free to move on? Is that clear?
Oh, yeah, actually, we've got somewhat of a time constraint, so
Okay.
condensation's a good thing.
Very good. Okay, so again, then, that's graphically represented in slide 5. Slide 6, this is one where I would like your input on. This is a big dashboard that I would like to present to you. In the interest of, we don't have these numbers. We haven't kept track of them. We might have some of them, but I don't have the data available to tell you that it's good value, so I didn't present it. But these historically, in my experience, are very important numbers to the health of an organization as far as safety goes. So a first aid is something where we have an incident, but it's not a medical treatment. It's not an OSHA recordable. A very important number that I would like to really start getting departmental buy-in on is a near miss. So we have an incident where nothing has happened, and thankfully nothing did happen, but it had the potential to. So I would really like to start generating reports on those near misses, and then we can mitigate the issue that caused that, especially if we start getting a fair number of those near misses that are like. Another good one is suggestions. I see that the county has a suggestion link on the risk management. Say, hey, this is my safety idea. This would just keep track of how many we've received, and then we could make other metrics from that. Like, is it a valuable one? Is it one that we acted on? Did we act on it or not? Why or why not? But these are just 30,000 foot view, look down, see what kind of numbers we're generating. Safety meetings are important, one, due to compliance, and two, it's a great opportunity to get the culture buy-in on safety and start putting it in the forefront of people's minds. Safety meetings are a great time to build rapport and get to meet people. Like, I would love to be a part of group safety meetings and go meet everybody and kind of see where we are with how we handle them and see if there's a place to improve there. The last one, the policy, the last two are compliance numbers. So in Washington and in OSHA, when you have an accident prevention policy, they prescribe how often you have to look at your policies to see if they're accurate for what you're producing. So I would just keep track of how many, the periodicity of whatever, like a lockout, tagout, or any part of our safety policy. When is the next one due? And then the following would be, hey, did we do it on time? Yes or no? And then we would start looking into, if it was no, why not? So the next slide is part of mitigating that, because training is a very important part of mitigating safety issues or preventing them altogether. And so we do have an online service. They weren't able to provide me these numbers yet. So unfortunately, this is an illustrative number. But what we'd be looking at is the types of training. We have new employees that need to be trained, annual refreshers or whatever periodicity of refreshment training is due. And then I think a very important number that gets overlooked often is we offer elective training, and most institutions do. And I would like to get it to the point where people are taking these elective trainings just to broaden their own safety knowledge, or I would keep track of any job related trainings too, just to see what kind of value, because this costs us money to have this service. And so if no one's going to use the elective trainings, and that's part of the cost of having it, then I'll say, hey, we're not using it. I'm not paying for this anymore. So it has a monetary value as well. And then a big part of the county that I wasn't accustomed to, that kind of took me by surprise, are the claims against the county. This is a new world to me. This is slide 8. And so we communicate with a very valuable resource called the Risk Pool. They're a terribly organized entity with a lot of valuable information, and he quickly provided me claims numbers. And so what this is any claim that the Risk Pool gets. I didn't break it down in any way, shape, or form. It's an accident insurance claim, a tort claim, anything. And so right now, as of 8 days ago, there are 9 open claims that we have with the Risk Pool. We closed one in October, meaning it's over and done with. And the reason that this last number is so high is that we actually do have a claim open since 2018. So I went back as far as we had an open claim and just counted claims moving forward. And so since 2018, we've had 141 of those claims. I think that's an important number to know because those have a tendency to be extremely expensive. So I want to get a good feel for what those are, trend, which, where they come from, who makes them, why they make them, if it's something that we can nip in the bud and even prevent them from happening. And just any way we can save money on those is of value because those are expensive. And they have as you can see, one's hanging out since 2018. So they do nothing but cost resource. I mean, we've been babysitting one since 2018. We need to get rid of stuff like that.
So Jeremy, you mentioned that we're not sure about how many trainings are being undertaken. We're not getting that.
I'm
data.
not sure. We haven't historically asked for that report. And so I just recently, this last week, got administrative access to get those numbers, and they are being kept track of within our system. I didn't find where the county has been doing that. I could be mistaken. I just haven't found it. I haven't found anybody who's done it. And so I just went ahead and I started from zero. I went right to the person we pay to keep track of this stuff and started generating numbers from their system.
So I am curious about some of the numbers that you provided on recordable injuries per month per year.
Those are accurate.
That's slide number 4.
Yes.
And curiously, in 2023, even though we still have 2 months left to go, we have very few claims.
Yeah.
And this is a period of time where, well, the claims manager, the risk manager has been between jobs or gone, or we haven't had a very active risk manager focus, and claims have gone, recordable injuries have gone down. Are you going to be able to explain why that seems to be?
I can add,
That's a great question.
I can add a little context. During the
COVID.
month of October, we did have 3 claims. They didn't get completed with the right paperwork or the right numbers. And so the chart is missing some of our most recent claims. Just in the month of October, we had 3.
Those are, I think
So-
you're talking about risk pool claims though, Kathy.
No, they were SIF
SIF
forms.
2s. Okay.
Mhm. And there's 3 that were for October, but our third-party administrator didn't have them. And so that's why they didn't report back to Jeremy those numbers.
And as
So-
mentioned, it's a lagging number. It might even only be at the end of the first week of October that they were able to provide me data. So they may
Right.
even have them, but I don't in this chart.
So
But it still is low. You're right. Your comment looking at 23 is lower than, for example, 2022.
and I can understand, I mean, it's lagging, so it's going to be behind. But it is interesting, the increase the 2 previous years, which we had a change in risk management due to retirement. And one of the things that he really focused on was safety training. And we used to start off our staff meetings with a safety reminder. And then that system didn't keep going for a lot of different reasons. And we're seeing recordable injuries increase. So it'll be interesting as Jeremy analyzes the figures for the recommendations you're going to make to get those numbers back down.
Well, I appreciate.
If there are things that we need to be emphasizing that we have stopped doing or never did do to begin with. I know some departments have a better emphasis on safety, especially dealing with heavy equipment.
Sure.
That's very much a requirement. But
Well, yeah, I appreciate that comment. And that's a reason I even put safety meetings as a statistic. I wholeheartedly believe that if it's as an adult, If you don't hear something frequently, you don't address it. You know, you got plenty of other things to do in life besides remember something you looked at 8 months ago. It needs to be in the forefront. It needs to be part of the conversation. And so I think safety meetings are a big part. And looking at some of the data too, to quickly answer your question, some of those, any COVID related missed times are added in there too. So there's a lot more of just sickness that are being counted as recordables than historically usually have ever happened. So some of those numbers might be a little high because of COVID.
Thank you.
So I guess I would just take us again to slide 9, which just is a graphical representation of our claims. So right now we don't have a ton of claims open and we want as few as possible. And so I'm just trying to show that, you know, claims happen and we are doing a pretty decent job of keeping the number open low, but the more we can reduce those, the better. And so that's a number I want to spend a real, any part of the gray matter I have that I could add to this. I want to work on this. This is to me as a project. And then finally,
Of course, Jeremy, oftentimes claims are resolved with financial settlements. And our willingness to pay big bucks can speed up that process. But that's not necessarily in the best interest of.
that's not our, you know, and those count, that closes them, right? I mean, it still
Yeah,
is
that's
closed
right.
value. So I mean, that's a great input is, okay, how did we close them? I mean, did the county really lose by closing this claim? Was it value closing it? Could we have done something in a different method to close it? I mean, at the end of the day, closing the claim is not the goal. It's like I was talking about, we need to have an inferential link between our numbers and what real life is. And so I'm not shooting just to close the claims. I'm looking to understand why they happen and if we can prevent them, and at the lowest cost to our constituents. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to avoid waste. And I think that all of these things, keeping people safe and avoiding these claims and moving forward in that direction, does two things. It saves us money and it helps people. And so that's why I like this kind of work. Those are two very important things to me: protecting the people's money and protecting people. And so I'm excited to take this on. And then finally, in slide 10 is how I'm trying to make this happen for us. And so data integrity has been lacking I've only been here a month, but I'm having I don't see that we track a lot of things on our own, and we don't use very consistent methods of communicating the data. So in today's world, you know, we're not writing things on a piece of paper, we're creating things in tables. And if you don't have data integrity inside of those tables, it's a nightmare. We have to have a method of communicating that is the same across our entire footprint. And we also need, a best practice is to understand how to even save things. So that's what I meant by pathways, is that a folder should be structured in the same way in any department. So if we need to look, we can look and quickly gather that data. It's taken me a long time even just to find our data because we don't have those consistent pathways. And then an important part of doing that is to matriculate the department ownership of their own statistics. It's very rare in my experience that departments don't keep track of their own safety stats. And if a claim arises from their department, to keep track of that, they need it. Getting buy-in and to own those numbers and to feel good about those numbers makes this job easy to help run. And I think it promotes safety throughout the entire footprint that way. And then I can compare our statistics with our vendors in a meaningful way. I don't have to spend 3 man days going through their spreadsheet to figure out what is what. So we can develop a rapport with our vendors. We can communicate with apples and apples and save a bunch of time, and then start really doing the real work, which is preventing these things from happening. And I think a big part of that is how we manage projects. I think you'll see a consistent theme what I'm looking for is consistency across our footprint, even in project management. Like I should be able to come to you and say, this is my next project. These are the milestones I want to hit for achieving X, and I want to achieve it by this day. If I can't do it, it's a roadblock. What caused my roadblock? And then finally, what am I doing to work around or solve that problem? And if we all communicated that way, it'd be very easy to tabulate that data and understand. Projects might be something like, so for instance, we have cameras all over our footprint, and we have a number of vendors who are providing those cameras, and we have a number of different systems. Like if we were to compile make them all the same, then we could even say, hey, the garage camera X just broke. Do you have an extra one? Yeah, I can run one down from over here. We don't use much, and facilitate its quick use and repair instead of having to go wait for a vendor to provide us one, because we all know supply chain issues have been a bear lately. I'm struggling to wrap that up quickly. I think that that's an important part. And that's a project that I'm going to try to work on and define for you and hopefully get some input on. And then finally, a big aspect of any institution is managing change, because we have expected change. We have unexpected change, and the two big parts of doing that is planning for it. So you can plan for unexpected change and see who it is that we need to contact, what it is that we need to do about it. Expected changes, turnover, phone systems, new cameras, how we manage its matriculation into our system, because we need to know who it affects and what systems it affects, plan for that before we bring it in, and then have as much as we can planned for when we bring in these new systems or equipment. Those are my big projects that I have in front of me.
So Jeremy, another question that I have in working with the risk pool, are they in a position to make recommendations or do an analysis for how Cowlitz County is managing risk?
They do. They offer that annually.
Okay, so I think that's probably something, I don't remember us ever looking at that formally, a report from the risk management. We'll get some recommendations every once in a while, usually following up a case that gets resolved. And but if there are ways we can anticipate policy changes and practices that can avoid it to begin with, that would be.
For this year, they usually come and do one site visit. And so this year they did a site visit at juvenile detention. And so they did a report, and that's something that once Jeremy came on board, he has a copy of. And so they do at least one area every year for us.
It's their policy to annually visit, and they have they keep track of what it is they think are big risks statewide, and then they focus on that. I can ask them to come at other times. It's a little hard to get them because they don't have a giant amount of resource, but they said anytime I want. And then they're a fabulous resource. I've never seen anything like this. They review contracts if you want. They have insurance suggestions. They're an extremely valuable resource, and I've already used them 3 times for contracts and insurance questions, and they answer very promptly.
Great.
Unless anyone has any questions, I feel like I ran a little bit long probably, but I hope to complete these projects for you, present you a dashboard. Even, if I get hit by a truck, you can see it, and you don't need me to understand what those values are. So.
Is that a county truck you're talking about?
Right? Yeah. No, another county truck. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think our goal is that once a month to present some type of dashboard for you, so you can see some of the analysis that his office is doing.
No, I appreciate that. I come from industry. I had a dashboard I could pull up and see what we're doing, loads and different metrics. So it's a handy piece. I appreciate the presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you, gentlemen.
Takes care. Did we have any miscellaneous before? I know Jessica has an executive session. Not seeing any hands. Performance of a public employee. How long do you think, Jessica? 10 minutes? Okay, we will adjourn to executive session for performance of a public employee. Hey, back from executive session, no decisions were made. Jessica.
Good morning, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. I do have one request for the board this morning, and it's to reclassify the district court accounting specialist lead to district court supervisor at salary grade 500, effective 11/16.
Okay,
I move that we do that.
we have a motion. See any questions? See none, call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also vote aye. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you, commissioners.
Real quick, any other miscellaneous before we adjourn this first meeting? See none, we will adjourn the 10 o'clock meeting.